who and what are the Training and Skills Commission, you may well say. For some in the industry you'll know, for others you won't, and my job is to tell you a little bit about the Commission today. The Commission was officially, I like to say, born in 2003 when it was enshrined within the Training and Skills Development Act of South Australia. And the Commission is made up of a number of individuals. In this particular case, we have 11 individuals who sit on the Commission. The people who sit on that Commission are appointed, I beg your pardon, they're nominated by the Minister and appointed by the Governor, in the technical sense of the word. And the people who sit on the Commission bring a depth of experience of the vocational education, training and community sectors to the table. And I won't go through them all, but they're representative of employer organisations, employee organisations and community memberships and associations. We are appointed for a period of 2 years. Each of the Commission members are appointed for a period of 2 years, and I was appointed Chair on the 1st of January this year, so it's my first year on the Commission. I've been fortunate to have done a bit of work with the Commission over a number of years through my background in the vocational education and training sector. So we're an independent statutory authority, as I said, created by the state legislation. We have two core functions. We are the regulator of the apprenticeship and traineeship system. We are the people who have the oversight of the system. We delegate the daily operational side of that to the Department of State Development. They actually manage all the contracts of training and all the work that goes in and underpins all that. But we certainly provide advice and regulation over the system. We also provide independent, industry-valid advice on skills and workforce development. And who do we do that to? We do that to the Minister, and we do that to the Department. Myself and the Director of the Office of the Training and Skills Commission, which is a sub-branch, if that's not the right word, but a sub-department of the Department of State Development, we meet with the Minister monthly. We also meet with the Chief Executives and the Directors of the Department of State Development in the Employment and Skills Division. And as a way of that, we are the interaction between industry, employers, associations, regions and so on, and we provide that conduit back to the Minister and to the Department. We also produce a number of formal reports and publications around things like economic modelling, industry profiles, regional skills needs and qualification priorities. Over the last few years we've produced a number of documents. If you went to the website of the Training Skills Commission you'll find them. Some of you may have had some input to that documentation through regional or local or metropolitan consultations. Our most recent was the industry priority qualifications, which was done about 2.5 years ago, and that helped to inform government and the Minister on the best investment for public value of the training that was required. We're currently, our current work is in relation to skills for future jobs. That won't surprise you given some of the stories we're listening to and hearing about today. We're calling it the 2020 series. In fact, we're going to be launching it next Monday in Adelaide. And it will include some revised economic modelling, the framework for the policy papers around several matters, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the theme is the future nature of work. Not surprising given today's topic as well. So the key elements of that series that we'll be working on over the next 18 months and launching is around apprenticeships and traineeships, the adult community education sector, emerging and growth industries, clearly, and a review of the IPQ or Industry Priority Qualifications paper that we produced a couple of years ago. So we'll be working on that. The launch is, as I said, next Monday, and our first priority will be apprenticeships and traineeships. Very much part of our remit is regional engagement. Part of our visits, we have a number of meetings per year, is that we will have 2 regional visits per year, and we've been doing that for the last 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. So that we provide a non-North Terrace focus, if you like, for policy deliberations. And as it says there, the current Commission is holding all of its meetings in either metropolitan or outer metropolitan locations. Very much part of the South Australian, I'm not going to quote the numbers because you've heard them this morning, but very much part of our brief is to ensure that we're engaged the regional locations because they're so important to our economic development in this state. They are all unique. and they have their peculiar challenges. There's a theme that runs through the regions that I'm sure people from the regions would understand, and that will go around thin markets and employment opportunities and the training, availability of training and all sorts of other matters. But there are peculiar areas in those regions, and I can talk about Port Lincoln in a minute. But our independent role is to consult with industry in those regions on skills and workforce development challenges and present those views to the Minister and Government. So that forms part of our brief. If I talk just briefly, I'll go back that one. If I talk just briefly about Port Lincoln, for example, they have unique challenges in relation to clearly aquaculture, marine scale fishing, tourism, excuse me. They've got a burgeoning or potential mining oil and gas industry that's coming over there. But they face the challenge, their challenges are faced by isolation, thin population over large areas, and lack of training and so other things, and very, very unique issues that they have. No different, I'm sure, to this in every other region. But while that's all clear, very clear and current in my mind, it actually is, I should say, topical for today, given that the regions are a very important part of what we're doing. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch on before I close. One is that there's some very common themes that are coming through the speakers today, and that's around adaptive skills and adaptability of workforce. And I think the future of South Australia, as we know, is changing. The very theme of today is about the changing nature of work. And what we as the Commission are very conscious of is making sure that we've got not only a system that will cope with that, but we need to provide advice to the Minister as to what, for example, apprenticeships and traineeships might look like going future, what changes need to be made to those, or the system that will allow us to have an adaptive workforce or an adaptive employees, what things need to be perhaps brought into training packages or not put into training packages as an example, that will allow us to do that. And I'll give you a really good example. If you just take an Adelaide-centric focus for a moment, defence clearly gets a lot of press in that part of the world. But one of the emerging sectors of the industry that's growing, excuse me, is in relation to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, NDIS. And some figures that I've just recently seen in relation to the growth in your area is that there are something like 150 full-time employees engaged in that sector at the moment in this region. That is expected to triple over the next 12 to 18 months, perhaps 2 years. I'm not sure of the exact rollout dates, but nevertheless, that's something like 450 FTEs. And given that it's a casualised and part-time workforce, that might be 600, 700, 800 jobs that we're talking about involved in the NDIS. So what does that look like? What does our training system provide? What qualifications do we need? What's the profile of those people? What skill sets, if you like, will they need to do that? And I have to say, it very much came from centre of mind at Port Lincoln. It's much the same sort of statistics as what we're talking about. But I just leave that thought with you because perhaps a lot of you in the room aren't particularly aware of the numbers that might be about to unfold in this particular region of South Australia.